Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to cover yet another common science failure, and that is the understanding of these moronic, self-centered, brainwashed common scientists, even in the field of quantum physics. So, quantum physics, as defined by common quantum physicists, is bogus and a lie as usual. They continue, even with a greater understanding of the universe, which appears to be correct, that they stay with the Newtonian physical reality. And this is pretty sad, but I mean, this is, I've been listening to and watching one of the noted quantum physicists, one of the big mouths of the industry, a Sean Carroll, who can be easily looked up, and you can listen to his different lectures on science in general. And while listening to him casually, you don't find too many errors, and he tends to backtrack a little bit because, after all, he knows nothing, like all science. Yeah, where are we? I don't know. I think it may be. I'm a theoretical scientist, so that means maybe, if, could be, whatever. Pay me hundreds of millions, and I'll just keep thinking. And, of course, that's what they do. And this is a large part of quantum physics, is taking these uneducated, delusional people who went through a system that brainwashed them to believe in a particular area, now to come up with different or believable conclusions of what's really happening. But what's really happening is they're making conclusions based on their personal programming by a very horrendous system known as dumbademia. Yeah, the problem with the teaching systems in dumbademia is the fact that they tell you what to think. After all, you got to pass tests, you got to be in with the crowd, don't you? You don't want to be thinking different than everybody else, because then what does that mean? So, we all understand the critical need for foundation understanding, and of course, I'm a believer in this as well. How can you talk about subtle energy physics, radionics, etc., when you don't know the basics? But the point is, knowing the basis is just really pushing you past the starting line. So now you're 2 steps ahead, but you got a long race to go before you actually win. So, I mean, that's really where we're at. The problem is that academia, known as dumbademia, is the plain and simple, they think they're 2 steps from the finish line. Well, Sean Carroll, we know how much you've achieved. Of course, you've filled your pockets and continue to try and sell your books. I guess that several $100,000 a year from dumbademia salaries ain't good enough for you. So they're out there doing that. Now, here's the big problem with all this quantum physics, string theories, etc. And again, they're theories. They're maybe. So you tell me, in life, I put a board across a raging river. And I said, well, based on my calculations, theoretically, the board I put out there should hold as you walk across this river. And let's say you're up like 500 feet. So my theoretical understanding, you should be okay. Okay? Are you crossing that bridge? Because I ain't. So this is what science does. And the point is that you may be up 500 feet, and of course, it's more than that in real society, because these people are basically telling society what's going to happen and steering them. So the point is, these are not just theoretical. Things are based on this. So they take their understanding that they know nothing to begin with and try and extrapolate on, well, we think based on our information that this board will hold you as you walk across here. We don't really have any proof. We don't know anything. It's just kind of popped out of my ass. So the whole idea is, it comes from years of bookie learning from dumbademia experts. So you make sure, and I'll stand here and you can test it. So, I mean, this is the reality of what's going on. And I don't think people quite understand this. And as I said, I keep telling people there's a big difference between science and engineering. Now, engineering would give you a different answer. Well, because the board is 6 inches thick, it's made from this type of steel, it will not bend based on the facts of life. You weigh 200 pounds, you should have no problems. It will be able to hold 500 pounds. So you are guaranteed to get across to the other side. That is engineering, based on, by the way, provable facts. Here's quantum physics. We're not sure. It thinks it can be. I got a theory based in a book told me, by this other fat guy who told me, by this guy who's never been in the real world who lives in Dummademia. Okay, here we go again. So these are the kind of things that we're talking about in terms of the difference between science and, quote, engineering. And I think it's important because engineering is based on facts that can be proven instantly, basically. So what they come out and say, all these quantum physicists who spend their lives basically questioning and thinking, it's very interesting to watch some of these scientists, and of course some of the older ones that are now retired, particularly the person who basically invented, and then it is invented. It came out of his proverbial bottom of the string theory. Well, he says, what I do mostly, I think he's in his 70s now, but, they don't do much experiments. They sit around talking to other scientists, commemorating on, commencing, or not commemorating, I can't think of the word, but they sit around just shooting the breeze. And of course, this is important. If you're talking to somebody else who has their own ideas and you mix them all together, you're supposed to have a synergistic result, meaning the mixed soup tastes really good, instead of having a single ingredient that is kind of okay. So I understand that, but it's basically one programmed individual who is really worried about where his next little piece of reality is going to come from, where his next sexual conquest, where his food, what he's got to do, where's his paycheck, what's on TV, all the stuff that's going through these people's minds. And of course, it's all based on Dummademia. The fact is that 500 years ago, somebody wrote a book that now is still being read again, something I'm really greatly against, by the way. Which is one reason I never use bibliographies. I don't taking information from people. Those are stimulating higher thought forms. If you're taking information from other people, then you are a dummy. Otherwise known as part of Dummademia, because that's how Dummademia is set up. These are not measuring sticks. These are not helpful influences. They're facts that you regurgitated and don't even really make your own. And you can always tell very ignorant people because they quote everybody else. What Descartes said and Einstein. Who gives a damn? That's all written there. I don't need you to tell me what they said. It's insulting to me. I've read their garbage. And that's what it is. It's very appropriate, like all the religious books of the world, to be used for toilet paper because that's the value of it. After getting the gist of it, it means nothing because they produce nothing. But Dummademia has to produce thoughts to justify their huge salaries. So here's what they all say. And the bottom line is that, yes, quantum physics, there's a direct connection between other particles in the universe. Okay, sounds good, but it doesn't go anywhere from there. Their belief system is that and listen to this is important, no information can be transferred through quantum fields. This is their belief system. So the bottom line is, yes, there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but you can't transfer information. Now, this goes back to, of course, the ancient mystery schools and back to what would be considered manifesting influencing energies. Meaning the fact that because of the fact that you tune into someone dialing in a particular radionic rate, let's say, or if you want to be magical about it, you have someone's hair and you use it on a voodoo doll, which means you're connected to that person. Yes, you're connected, they say, but you can't do anything with that connection. So the point is you cannot affect or transfer information from the sample you have to the actual target. Now, this doesn't make any sense at all if one thing is connected, but they're saying it's connected in this cemented, proven way, similar to their old belief system that the brain was a rock. It wasn't flexible now, and it couldn't heal, it couldn't do anything. Well, it's 100% wrong. Science is 100% wrong, and what's good about science is that they do have a 100% record. So we can really count on them, that we can count on science to get it 100% wrong 100% of the time, because they're never right. Now that they have pictures of space, you don't hear about it, but all the things you were told about the planets and everything else, it's all wrong and has been proven to be. Their basic thought, belief, theoretics is all wrong. So, but you're not going to be told that, because then they can't cash their huge checks and write goofy books. It's comical how bad this stuff is. So they're saying you can't transfer. No information can be transferred, even though quantum physicists believe that the two items are connected in some fashion. So they can't believe it. Now, this is the same, and this is, of course, has been stated by Sean Carroll and many other, I guess all of the quantum physicists, the dumbademia authorities, have all come out and told us the same thing here, which of course makes no sense at all and has been proven to be incorrect. Now, I've mentioned this with Carol and did even a little video on him being very close-minded. And let's also hear what this, and I don't think, the reason I'm picking him out is I think all dumbademia quantum physicists, theoretical quantum physics, because that's what they are, I don't think quantum physics has ever been made a science per se. It's a theoretical science. Maybe. So that's what I want to hear with investments and what's going to happen. And is the road closed up there? Can I go through? Maybe. Is this a good investment? Maybe. Am I safe to go over here? Maybe. Okay, yeah. It's hilarious. So what Sean Carroll has stated here, and we do have a link in the other, and maybe you should have this at the end here. I'll link you to my other talk on him, which has a link to where he actually states that he knows everything. We know all the particles out there, how they actually work, but we know everything that's out there. Huh? So the whole, here we go again. So he knows everything. They just have to figure out how to put the pieces together. Right? He has the whole puzzle. They just have to put it together. Well, I think that's very ignorant thinking to begin with, considering dumbademia has always been wrong. The other thing he clearly stated there was the fact that he knows for 100% fact that you cannot bend a spoon from holding it, thinking about it, or anything else. There is nothing coming out of your head. You're a meat puppet. Plain and simple, because we know this from our meters, and I know everything that exists because 500 years ago, this little guy told me. Otherwise known as Newton, who was an alchemist and a celibate alchemist who wrote religious things and probably was gay and everything. As we go on all this stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they're coming from a very interesting perspective. People don't understand that. And of course, Newton actually said that alchemy was the ultimate empowerment that he didn't even want to talk about, which is basically comes down to subtle physics. Subtle energy physics is alchemy. Here we go again. So he's stated nothing comes out of it. You can't bend a spoon. You can't do anything. It clearly states that nothing is happening there, even though this has been demonstrated probably millions, tens, maybe hundreds of millions of times. If we go through the entire world, well, let's even go past that. Probably billions and billions of times, this type of situation has been reenacted by Taoists, by all of the people, Indians, Hindus, you name it. People have demonstrated these, quote, super normal abilities that they are able to tap into, and has been done over thousands of years. And of course, that should be good enough for science. It's supposed to be repeatability. But of course, it's not, and they don't want to do it. And you don't want to bring somebody in. I've had this happen on interviews many years ago that, people didn't want to interview you because they knew nothing about that. What are they going to ask you? What is radionic? You're not going to get very many people that want to talk about a subject area that they know nothing about, plain and simple. So they feel awkward. They feel very weak. They're not inquisitive types that just want to ask questions and follow that up. They want to be in on the game. They want to be able to know what's happening so they can communicate, they think, at a higher level. But that's a ridiculous thing to do. You don't go to a doctor and then start discussing to him on a doctor level. You don't have those qualifications. But that's what they want to do. So the point is that science is never going to tell some other competing area of empowerment that they're justified. They're in control and they're going to stay in control, just like medicine isn't going to give up their healing abilities, if you can call it that, to the herbal industry, which has been proven for hundreds of thousands of years to work. So that's just the way it is. So, but as I said, if you go through all the metaphysical traditions around the world, you're talking about billions of people who have been able to bend metals of different amounts and have been shown, and very credible people. We're talking about his fellow Dummadamians, people that have high-level degrees, doctorate degrees, and lasers, and other areas, and it goes on, that all of these people ultimately have been involved in these studies and proven it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And this has been proven for over 150 years. So it's not new. This is what science should be jumping on. Well, what is all this data? Science is all about, well, we don't know enough. We have to get data. Oh, yeah, we need more data. Okay. Well, that means money. Of course, we need lots and lots of money. So okay, they do that, and we've had that with trillions of dollars going into cancer research, and we found out what happened there, or all the other researches. So they keep doing that, and they keep finding out that they don't come to any answers. So the whole idea is there's plenty of data sitting there. They should go over this data very carefully, and then they should make their own experiments. Now, most of the data done in the last 150 years is done by very credible scientific people on top of it. It isn't done by some witch doctor from Somalia. So the point is these are people that have scientific backgrounds. But science has always kept their belief systems to themselves. They don't want to give up power. Does everybody get that? So the point is that if you're playing baseball, you're not going to go over, what's happening over here in this game? And say, gee, this is a great game. Let's stop playing baseball. Well, everything you have is based in baseball. You have bats, you have gloves, you have set up parks, you have everything that goes with it, the uniform, the shoes. Oh, no, we're just going to drop all that and go over to this buddy's, what he's talking about. So it just doesn't make sense to a large degree. Now, there's no reason why you can't play another game as well as baseball, but that's not how most people look at it. So Sean Carroll has completely stated that he believes none of this works. Even billions of people have done it, and people from these accredited, higher educated people by the tens of thousands, as well as other credited, credible people that have done these things. So it goes on and on and on, including a vast amount of everybody's buddies, the military, who control your life, who you spend trillions of dollars on, take precious money out of your pocket. These guys have been able to do it, and it's documented, including generals, which still do it to this day. General Alexander, the government's little sneak thief that goes in and tests all this stuff. Stubblebind, who bent these things himself, who's now passed away. And it goes on and on of people that have done this, just like people who are witnesses to all types of UFOs. They want to talk about Ma and Pa Kettle out in some hillbilly land with some moonshine on their breath, saying they saw UFOs. Well, this wasn't the case. Accredited scientists, people from law enforcement by the thousands, people in government were all part of these UFO groups and had experiences. It wasn't just Ma and Pa Kettle in hillbilly land. This is nonsense. And I'm not sure that their statements aren't good as well. I think everybody's statements has some value. So this is something he states there, basically stating there are no psychic powers, there are no energies that he has not discovered, still to be discovered. The brain is a meat puppet. You are a meat puppet. And we know what's out there in the universe. We're just trying to figure it out. What he's doing is blending quantum physics into his own belief systems instead of coming up with a new conclusion. And this is why I have such problems with people that start quoting others. I don't care what others have to say. What's the new conclusion based on your gathered information at this time and place? Not what was written in 1922 by Einstein or 1850 by Kant. Who cares? How does that have anything to do with now? So we go way back all the time quoting other people that lived in completely different realities, and we want to somehow give them credit. Well, here we go again, as with everything, and this is very typical. So don't believe any of these scientists who seem to want to see things a little differently. They don't, and they're afraid of their jobs, and they're afraid to make statements, and they're afraid to go out and do things because they want to be part of the scientific model. And if they come out and are too aggressive and too tough, they get shunned. And of course, this goes on through parapsychology and everything else, while none of the uneducated, sexual devious, school dropout, paid off corporate whores have any credibility. The dumb bunkers and skeptics are the lowest level people on the planet that you wouldn't allow to cut your lawn. When it really came down to it, if someone came up to your door, and let's call this person Penn Jillette. I want to clown college. I can do this little trick. I'm a juggler. Okay, it's $50 to cut your lawn. Well, what does that mean? Well, I don't want to hear about that. Where's your lawn experience? You're my first, but I've researched it. So this is the kind of nonsense that comes out. And of course, parapsychologists are afraid to confront these people. And of course, we know why. They're cowards. They've been bought off. They work for these people. I think a lot of these parapsychologists and other people are on the payroll of these people. They certainly act like it. They certainly don't show any proof. They don't demonstrate anything. I mean, what is this all about? Talking heads of nonsense? I mean, really? So the whole idea is we all need to understand this and look at this. So that's what quantum. You can't exchange information. They just tend to be similar, and that instantaneous exchange already took place, but you can't influence one quantum material, and that influences the rest of the quantum material. Even though, again, this goes against certain quantum physics, but this is what they believe. There's no information that is transferred through typical quantum fields. This is what they tell you, regardless of how they misinterpret things, be it what they tell you differently. The bottom line is that's just not true. That's what they believe. Quantum physicists will all tell you there's no information involved with it. And there certainly isn't what subtle energy physics is all about, which is energetic informational energy fields. And what that means by energetic, it means these informational energetic fields make physical changes in their connected world. So if you're connected to another quantum physics field, let's say you're connected to a person's picture, you then send energy to them, which has a physical effect on them. Now, this has been proven as a fact. There's a lot of research has been done in this area to actually prove this. So people have to understand that and understand where they are. So don't think that quantum physics know anything. They're still in left field. They're still trying to figure things out. They may be in the stadium, but man, they're up in the bleachers in that corner chair, which nobody wants really to be in. That's where they're at. And they keep struggling because, subtle energy physics works and works all the time. And the quantum understandings keep changing and they work. So they're still trying to hide this particular reality. They're also keeping things down to a physical reality in their mind. Now, we're talking about things that are very non-physical, but technically they're physical. Energetic informational fields are physical. They can be measured. They're just not out in the cosmos, so to speak. And if we spent time working on these fields, we could come up with meters and other things as well. So this is another fraudulent aspect of people thinking that they can't be measured. Quantum means the smallest possible measurable energy. So that's what quantum means. People think quantum means something special, but no, quantum means tiny, 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 but measurable. Okay? So that's why they use the term quantum and how it can be understood. Because nobody wants to say, well, it's this thing out there in the universe. Well, what do you mean this thing? Well, we think it's there. Well, no, so the point is that to throw in quantum, meaning that it can be quantifiable or measured, is important. And I think that's important to a degree as well, even though technically they're theoretical quantum physicists. They're thinking that there may be. So wouldn't we think that there maybe is something beyond the, quote, quantum? Well, of course there is. That's called occultons and psions. It's called subtle energy physics. But, the point is that these people are cavemen. They're still banging on rocks in the quantum physics world, except today, instead of using a chisel and a hammer, they're using a little laser to cut their rock into some sort of language to print on those. That's pretty much the difference. There ain't much difference is what it really means. So everyone should be quite understanding that quantum physics is another dead, dry hole. The people that talk about this are not really talking about anything that they want to go into some aspects of the psions, which is how one energy interacts with the occultons to form different matters or energetic informational fields. They want to breeze through these to a certain degree, but they don't want to give it much of an extent. So there's no information being transferred there, even though you as the actual observer of something affects it. So you have to be transferring information for that to happen. So the whole idea is this is where they get very confused and really don't have any idea what they're talking about. So, and then of course they want to set up people with ridiculous type proof for them. Well, the point is this has been proved, and it's been proved by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of noted scientific people that come from Dumbademia, and the point is that they don't want to buy it. That Dumbademia is not the Dumbademia they're involved. And this is, of course, the cop-out that all these people do. They pick and choose the people that agree with them and go from there. So hopefully people understand the fraud of quantum physics with its non-transferable informational fields through quantum physics. So, and this is something they all agree on. Well, it's all bogus then. They don't know what they're talking about, but what's new? After all, Sean Carroll can't prove from all the hundreds of videos done by scientists of people actually doing this and doing what's considered higher normal practices, which has been highly documented. He won't buy into any of it. And of course, he won't look into it because he don't know nothing about it. So let's say he looks into something and say, you're right. Well, I don't get it. I'm like a retard. I'm like a preschooler in science. I've spent 50 years in science, written hundreds of books, but I'm as dumb as a rock. I don't get it. I have to go to some other expert who ain't in Dumbademia. So this is what happens. Do people understand this? So they're bought into this, and this is how they actually work. It's pretty sad. They are not seeking truth. They're seeking to get the answers that they have asked and want the answers to fit into their reality, not truth. And that's the bottom line. Until next time.